Sounds like they're talking. Good evening and welcome to the July 14th, 2016 meeting of the Newmarket Conservation Commission. I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Sue Frick, our minutes taker, has notified us that she will not be here this evening, so I ask everyone to speak relatively loudly and into the microphones because she'll probably take minutes from the recording. I also received notice from Andrea Sellers that she will not be here this evening, and I'd like to appoint Julie St. Clair as a voting member for this meeting. So I guess I will do roll call. Julie St. Clair.
Here.
Patrick Reynolds.
Here.
Marianne Hennigan.
Here.
Drew Kiefaber.
Present.
Ezra Temko.
Here.
Bob Gazda.
Here.
Phil Nazaro.
Present.
And Jeff Golnoff is present. There's no public this evening to offer any comments, so I'll move along to the approval of the minutes from the June 9th, 2016 meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the June 9th, 2016 Conservation Commission meeting.
Second the motion.
Any further discussion about them? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstained.
Abstained?
Wasn't here. Not present.
Excellent. So six.
Oh, I would approve, I'm sure.
601. Andrea is thank you. Andrea is the treasurer. She's not here this evening, but she did leave the report with us. If there are any questions that we need to relay to her. I didn't really see any personally. Nothing that couldn't be addressed next month anyway. I think that's a year's worth of contracted services, but it seems like a lot. But that would be the only question that I would have. Don't always understand exactly what that means, though. If anyone else has any questions.
Keep going.
Awesome.
Page 3. We've already.
If not, I'll move along to the committee and subcommittee reports. Phil, is there anything from town council?
So there's only one meeting since our last meeting on June 9th. I believe the only thing that might have been of interest was there's discussion about authorizing designation of portion of 152 as an economic recovery zone, but that was tabled pending planning board action on the master plan. Other than that, we have a meeting this coming Wednesday that has no ordinances in the first or second reading. So things are quiet for the summer.
Excellent. Thank you, Phil. Planning board, Ezra?
Sure. So I guess there's two main things, and feel free to chime in as I don't cover things with what Diane talked about with process. But so the first one is the so there's a proposal for a 11 unit subdivision out by Bay Road and Dame Road. And I can actually, I brought just the materials with me, so if you want to see any of the maps, or there's one document here that has some pictures, I can pass those around. And Jeff was at a site walk of it. I started at the beginning of the site walk, but due to a conflict, I had the toddler with me and had to leave because we couldn't quite make it the whole time. But so basically, at our planning board meeting Tuesday, that's a different map, yeah. But at our planning board meeting Tuesday, we approved a special use permit for the development, and what the reason there, it's zoned residential, so basically there is kind of a by right ability for them to develop the land and build residential homes, and they determined that there was viable economic use for them to do that. The special use permit, which we had discretion over as an alternative was basically is something in our code such that they can do clustered housing and preserve additional open space, and then they get a slight density bonus. So their proposal has 11 units instead of 10, but the majority of the site is preserved as open space. And so that was what was voted on this past week. And so now it moves into a subdivision proposal that'll come forward. Part of the conditions of approval also included some discussions of both of trail discussions, as well as, a plan that they need to submit, as well as a plan regarding, I'd have to look back at the specific words, but regarding some other conservation issues with it. And so that's something that they will be talking with the Conservation Commission about at some point in the future when those plans are submitted. And they will have to be, in order for the project to continue to go forward. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add on that.
The only things I would add on is that I did walk, and I spent a bit of time walking around with Jim Gove Environmental Services, kind of reviewing and walking through the center of the proposed open space field area, because that's where the most intensive management is thought that would happen there, that they may be proposing as part of their long-term management plan of the open space. And so I remember, it's pretty early, they haven't submitted their actual subdivision application yet. But at the time, their thought was that a homeowners association would hold basically the underlying title and have management oversight of the open space out there. And maybe the town would hold the conservation easement over it, or the conservation rights would be deeded to another party. And part of that, they would have to create a management plan. And it sounded like Jim Gove Environmental was kind of, talking about mowing. It's kind of a field, and there's a lot of native species out there, and there's a lot of pockets of invasives out there, and some areas are heavily crowded with invasives, and so they may be proposing kind of a yearly mowing of the field area, even though it's a wetland, mostly a wetland. So, it's something that they're going to propose to us most likely as part of their management plan and like to talk to us about. And then another thing that's expected, though not guaranteed, there's a thought that they may ask for a waiver from the 100-foot buffer requirement for an open space subdivision from wetland, from just straight poorly drained soils. So, and that we may be asked to comment on that waiver as well. So it's something to think about, and most of that impact from their, from their preliminary subdivision plan that they put in the special use permit application. Looked like most of that waiver request would be near Dame Road, and maybe impact like 2 or 3 lots or something like that, if I remember right. But it's still preliminary, and we'll really see what they have to offer, I guess, when the subdivision application itself comes in.
And just to add in terms of, when I was mentioning the trail plan, but then the other plan is the land stewardship plan. So that will deal with the long-term management of open space and issues regarding the wetlands, et cetera. So that's specifically what the management plan is about.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And the only question, it's too early to really ask them questions, but I'd just be curious why they want to go with a homeowners association having a very active management plan, like mowing and hiring, I don't know, and not looking for like Southeast Land Trust or it's kind of more the Nature Conservancy's neck of the woods, or Fish and Game, or someone else holding some rights.
Yep. And I don't know if that conversation has been had at all, because a clustered housing development where I'm originally from has the same kind of thing where it's not in an area where there's any wetlands or any kind of thing. It's just mostly meadow and grass and created meadow. But the homeowners association manages it and pays for it. And they actually contract out, and they have annual meetings, et cetera. And they do a pretty good job with it, but it might just be standard for that type of development, and they might not have thought about whether there's alternatives with this specific proposal. So that might be a good conversation to have and find out about, but I don't know anything more about it.
Yeah, and the only other thing I would ask is that would just be kept up to date. And Diane said that she would, if there's a technical review committee put together, that she'd let us know what the date and time are, and we're welcome to attend. And she's going to try to get I asked for PDF copies of plans so we can distribute them easily. She said she's not normally supplied them, but she can request them. And I know most survey engineering firms have large format scanners, and it's really not too big of a deal for them to scan a copy and email it over. So hopefully that.
I have one other thing, but if questions on this or comments on this?
Yeah, so I had a question on this, and that is, it appears that a lot of the property is wetland, and so within our ordinances, is it viable to consider those wetland areas as buildable space?
Right, so, they did a yield plan looking at what they could actually do within our ordinances, which I believe either the technical review committee or staff reviewed, to make sure it complied with everything. And so it was found that they would be able to get 10 lots there, if just under its current zoning.
It's not near there.
So I imagine so I don't know to what extent it would actually have already been somewhat clustered anyway, if they hadn't done this.
Yeah, I mean, that's shown, I think, in page 3 or 4 of the Jones and Beach
Yeah.
packet. Okay.
It's almost the same configuration. It's just like they cut the backs of the lots off.
Yeah.
And then you get a
Pretty much.
density bonus, so you get an extra lot, I think.
Yeah.
Is why they ended up with 11 instead
Mhm.
of 10.
Yeah, the bonus goes with agreeing to do the open space.
Yeah.
And I believe they also mentioned a potential direct wetland impact at the road entrance, because the ditch along the edge of Dame Road there is considered a wetland. Yeah, so there will be a crossing that we'll probably see come to us as well, because we usually typically see the direct impact of wetlands or buffers have to come before us.
So, so does it mean if there was an open space on this parcel, that the public would have access to that?
So there's discussion of, so there will be trail access, there was discussion about kind of 2 different trails, and there seems to be, and they have to come up with, again, a plan that will be reviewed about trail access. It seemed like the most preferable trail was one that kind of already exists, connecting the development to, do you remember what the street is? Lamprey
Is it
Street?
Lamprey Street, I think?
And that would be something that then people could access as pedestrians, especially in the community, to then access town. There was also discussion that there's kind of a not currently maintained trail along the river there, and that could also be trail access. There were some abutters who didn't like that idea, but I think the technical review committee did like that idea, and so, but one of the technical review committee members, I think, said they really liked the idea, and another one at the board meeting said that they were mainly focused on the other trail thing, so I'm not sure what the final outcome will be. I imagine that's something also that we could have input on and share our perspective on.
I personally would say that, well, so where they were thinking of accessing Lamprey Street, if folks know, there's like a little ice pond, I guess. It's like, there's like a little dam, like right off the side of the road, where apparently there used to be an ice pond, and it's full of mud now. And so that was kind of where they were thinking, when we walked out there on the sidewalk, and walked out to the street and walked back in.
That's on Lamprey? Like,
I
where
think
was
it's
that?
on Lamprey Street.
Yeah.
Here's Lamprey.
Right where the lot gets really close.
And see, this is the lot, this is
There's
where.
a yard, there's a yard adjacent to one side, and
Through
like
to
a
there.
little pond adjacent to the other side. And so
But
they
yeah,
were
it's
thinking
very
of
wet
having
in there,
access
is what
there, but
he's
it's
saying.
really a limited upland, to be honest, that will be behind those lots. And it seemed like they were talking more about it just being access from people in the subdivision to walk through the woods to get to town.
That's what I got the
Um,
impression, it was just for those people.
But it would be open to the public, it
But there just
seemed.
wouldn't be utility
But
that-
like, you wouldn't be able to walk out, because it's surrounded by wetland. The parcel on Bay Road is mostly wetland. And then there's, the houses occupy a pretty large majority of the upland. But who knows? We'll have, I mean, they'll show it potentially as part of their plan. But there was a little bit of opposition to that at the meeting the other day. Sure. Only from one abutter, I should say.
So my other item is that the planning board did approve their future land use chapter of the master plan, and I think the item that, I mean, there's various things around climate change and conservation in there, but I think the main kind of development from the last meeting was what happened with the proposed residential coastal protection district, and I'll pass around a map that shows kind of where the proposal was for it. And so basically, what was decided was, and this goes back to, I mean, so for example, with the development, we saw what kind of development do you want there in the first place, and what do we want to legally allow, and what kind of protection should there be, either in terms of special use permit options or just by right, what should people be able to do? And so what ended up happening was that the kind of discussion about the proposed residential coastal protection district, there was a decision made that the intentions there may be appropriate for other parts of town that might also have environmental sensitivity, as opposed to the specific parts that were kind of mapped out. And so that section was removed, but the language from it that wasn't talking about the map, but the language about the intention of it was moved to a different section in the chapter. And so the idea is then that the next step would be for looking at kind of what changes we may want from a zoning and land use planning perspective, and whether there's specific areas of the town, including the ones that have been mapped out, or other areas that, or maybe, you know, a specific metric of that we would want to have different land use regulations for. The other thing is that you'll see here, there's a section in what was the proposed district marked B2. So it had the potential for, well, it theoretically had a potential for additional kind of commercial industrial uses, although I say theoretically because the kind of barrier to that was truck access. So I think that's where there's like that kind of wooden little bridge that it's hard to, for kind of there to be that kind of development of activity. And so what the master plan suggested was that in line both with what is viable for that site, as well as with thoughts about whether you want industrial in that site, was to move it back to residential. Now again, the specifics around that were not specified, so it didn't say like R1 or R2 or whatever. That's the kind of the next stage. And again, with the removal of the coastal protection district, the residential coastal protection district, that discussion around what kind of changes we might want or might see is something that we'll have to have in the future, and talk also about what applies. Although I will say, in terms of, you know, the ideas around low impact development or open space design, or one thing is, if the Conservation Commission does have ideas, that, I mean, the next step for us is going to take the master plan and develop it into zoning ordinances and land use regulations. And one thought that I had was that for particular areas, it seems to me a little bit backwards to have kind of the by right be kind of the traditional zoning that we know is bad, and the special use permit be the clustered zoning, because then it also puts you in kind of the predicament of that you kind of just have to approve the special use permit if you don't want the other option. But that it seemed more that if we have better land use planning techniques now, that those should be the default, and if somebody wants to do something more kind of traditional, that's worse for the environment and for resource planning and infrastructure, that would be a special use permit that then the planning board would have discretion over, saying, yes, we can do this, and here's why you're doing it, or no, you can't. But those are discussions we have. So I'll pass this around as well. So this is, and just, so this is kind of the area closer to the base of the area in green was the proposed district, and again, the language from it was removed, but was kept, but the actual mapping of it was removed.
Yeah, I'd say I was going to ask you to speak about that. I thought that was a good idea personally, about the potentially thinking about, you know, saying the norm would be open space, the exception might be a conventional subdivision. I thought that was a good idea. And as well as the language that you asked, it was a small language change that you asked for. I thought that was good as well, if you remember what that was with the...
Yeah, I mean, I think the language that was proposed for amending it just talked, I believe, about...
encouragement.
Yeah, encouraging low-impact development, and so we added, expanding that to not just be low-impact development, but of also exploring alternatives in terms of that there might be things we want to require as opposed to just saying, this is a good thing to do, or we might give you density bonuses for it.
So you're looking at the whole town?
Yeah.
That's great.
That's all I have.
And so is that whole thing said and done now? Like all, the whole future land
The whole
use
chapter is done, yeah.
Is done now?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ezra. Actually, I have actually grabbed one of the copies of the language, kind of changes. Some of this has changed since the meeting because some of it was amended, but if anyone wants to take this and read it. It's kind of a long read for right now during the meeting, but, yeah.
I have another copy too if somebody wants to take it home. But- Yeah, so it should be strongly encouraged, and now it should be strongly encouraged and further explored. Instead, right?
Excellent. Excellent. So, does anyone have any more questions for Ezra? Are we all?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ezra. Very good. And I have one other committee thing to just bring up real quick, is the Chris Schottmeyer land seeking out committee, I guess. So, still on the lookout for parcels. If anyone knows of anything, feel free to just send an individual email along, and can maybe look into it. I have received word this week that we should be receiving the check that was spoken about, the first $50,000 donation. We should be receiving shortly, potentially even this week or today or tomorrow. And so I've been speaking a little bit here, and Richard Shelton has also been speaking with Matt Angel about setting up a fund for the monies to go into to ensure that they're spent for the donated purposes. And at that point, you know, when the money starts coming in, I think that we're gonna try to ramp up our efforts a little bit more. I know that I've personally walked one parcel, but and I know Richard has spoken to several people around town, but still kind of looking at the moment. So,
Was there any particular characteristics they were looking for? I mean, I know Chris was a, obviously avid outdoorsman, and he had a connection to environmental enforcement and stuff. Is there something
still looking
connected with that would be ideal, or
still looking for waterfront if
yeah,
available,
or something that would give
contain a
people-
pond or have a frontage on a river or
right
flowage
makes
or
sense.
something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, where it could be a small park possibly could be combined with access to water for fishing or such. So, if anyone can think of anything, feel free to contact the Conservation Commission. If you're at home watching. That's all I have on that. Is there any other subcommittees that have been doing? The other one I think we have is trails, but
Trails.
I haven't, yeah, I've walked Scassock Loisel, but that's about it. I actually went to Wigan Farm the other day. And, yeah, I should bring that up quick. I did go to Wigan Farm the other day. I had made a request to Rick Molaski to have the trails over there mowed, and they are mowed and doing well. And he did mow around the parking area. So,
Thank you, Department of Public Works.
that's right. Thank you very much. So that's it for committee and subcommittee reports. As far as the chairman's report, a few things came up that weren't on the agenda that I'll try to go through pretty quickly. So, the climate resilience talk at Town Hall that was put on by the planning department was very interesting. I did attend it. They went over several projects that are happening in town. I think I can pass. I have materials that I picked up at the meeting that I can pass around. Some are for funding opportunities, ones that folks might be interested in. There was a big discussion about the flooding impact of Moonlight Brook, and potential ways to help mitigate that by maybe any time, there was a lot to it, and I would encourage people to watch it. I can't rehash 2 hours worth of of meeting right now, but there was a lot of talk about redevelopment in ways that encourage less impervious surface, or if it has impervious surface, ways to mitigate the impact, as opposed to just replacing things as they are. Okay, you're going to replace that, why not put in a rain garden or a catchment situation and infiltration underground and all sorts of stuff like that. And I think the biggest two or three really interesting things would be that the current drainage project on New Road, they're thinking of redirecting about 45 acres or so of drainage that currently flows behind the old, what is it now? I don't know, what is it, Legion now? The old Peltzar Funeral Home. There's a little stream back there, so that they're thinking of taking some of the water. I guess it would be from the inside of the Bay Road, New Road 108 area, just opposite and south of the Department of Public Works, and potentially draining that off down by the Fish and Game ice shack launch area, and potentially doing that, something they're looking at. And they're also looking at the direction the water flows from the brook over here that crosses Beach Street Extension. The low point over there, and there's beneath the salt shack, and the wetland over there currently flows out into I think it kind of flows into Moonlight Brook, where it daylights, or in one of those manholes at the bottom of the bowl there. So that currently all flows that way. Who knew? Underneath all these buildings. I always thought it went the other way because the river's right over there. But so they were kind of looking at that and potentially ways to work around it, because it's very deep, I guess, below some of these buildings, and if it were to fail, it would be a large problem. And so those are a couple of interesting things that we might be concerned about, because it will change water flow and flowage in town, which can impact numerous things. And the other big thing was the impact of the overflow of the Piscassic River into the Moonlight Brook watershed, and ways to mitigate that. And the real big win situation to mitigate it is to actually build a berm to restrict the Piscassic to to stay in its watershed, which is a big thing that would, it seemed like that would never happen, more or less, because it would change the floodway and it would add a bunch of water to the Lamprey River. That it seemed like a big thing, but it was one of the larger topics of discussion, and like I said, there redevelopment options where downtown's already developed. They're not going to, new things aren't going to happen left and right downtown, but if anyone comes to redevelop, to really try to get them to use alternative methods of capturing rainwater and redistributing it into the ground somehow. And the last thing on that is the planning department worked to get a grant to build a rain garden behind the high school. I don't know if you guys are aware of it. I was not aware of it. The excuse me, the culvert where the road goes out to the playgrounds. If you're walking towards the playgrounds on the right, there's like a finger of dirt and grass that separates the parking lot from the road there. So that's where they're, I think they're pretty much going to build it, if I'm not mistaken. I think they have the funding and they have the engineered plans to build it. But if anyone's interested, they could contact Diane to learn more about it. Diane Hardy, in the planning department.
What are they gonna build?
A rain garden?
Oh.
So would it be are you saying it's in the high school parking lot, though?
It's grass right now, but yeah, it's essentially
It's surrounded by the parking lot?
Yeah, and it's kind of and then there's not parking lot where it gets to the brook. You know what I mean? It's
Right,
like the
yeah.
finger of grass that goes to the bank right adjacent to the little culvert, or the big culvert there.
Yeah.
So the hope would be to take the runoff from the impervious surface of the parking area and provide some level of treatment prior to it getting into Moonlight Brook.
Right. And they would be planting trees and shrubs and hopefully
Absorbing some
of
of
it
that.
as well, yeah. So they were going to dig it out refill it with whatever stone and.
I mean, I know they're in the early stages of planning the school. I believe next week is when they're gonna release some of the preliminary plans, but I would hope at least that there's some thought about coordinating that, because you'd hate to think that the school is gonna try and figure out where their footprint might be to expand the school, and
I would hope
how
so.
would that impact that, or how it might contribute to more runoff, or
I hope so. I think they might have touched on that. There weren't too many people there, so questions weren't asked. And I kind of assumed personally that they had the foresight to coordinate to a certain degree.
right?
And I thought they might have mentioned that they did, but I can't remember for certain. Like it was far enough to the side and out of the way that it wouldn't be impacted. But I don't remember for sure, so I don't want to misspeak on that.
So one thing related to that, I noticed in there was the groundwater modeling for saltwater intrusion.
Yes.
Which is a study that is being done through UNH. A PhD hydrology student is doing some mathematical modeling of groundwater flows. And I volunteered to be on the technical advisory committee for that.
Excellent.
So I'll be able to provide some level of input and information related to that.
Excellent. Yeah, that was another very interesting topic with sea level rise and more potential impact for wells
Yeah,
to become.
the essential concern is that if and/or as sea level rises, there will be additional pressures and therefore additional probability of saltwater intrusion into wells that are closer to the bay. So in essence, the closer you are to the bay and the higher the salt water gets, the more pressure you have to drive that salt water into the stratified rock and therefore potentially into your well. And some of the people that were at the initial meeting were some residents in Newmarket who are close to the bay and have higher solids contents in some of their wells. So it's something that's definitely out there. It would be a question of extent and duration and timing, I think.
Are they looking for people's wells to test still, or have they chosen? I would offer mine. I'm relatively close to the bay.
I don't know if they're looking for
mile and a half.
Yeah, I don't think they're. I think if you had information on your well, they would be interested in it.
Okay.
They're not necessarily testing wells at this point. It's more if individuals knew, okay, my well is this deep and it goes through this sort of rock and it's at this location.
Yeah.
I think they would be interested in that sort of information.
Okay. That's good to know.
That's great that you're on that.
Yeah, it looks like interesting work. Be cool.
Yeah, so I'm sure you could find it on YouTube if you want to watch the whole thing or skip through to the interesting parts, but I thought most of it was quite interesting. So, the next thing I have, so what was not on the agenda was that received word on Tuesday that the Dearborn estate has been settled. So and you guys all got that email, right? I think. I didn't get it, and I was speaking to Steve Fournier, and I was like, "Oh, I didn't know that."
See it.
I didn't see.
So-
see it either.
Okay, the list looked large, but anyway, so the Dearborn estate has closed or settled. The deeds are currently being reviewed by the town's legal counsel, and so they're obviously trying to take care of that expediently, so the estate holders can move on. So something we'll need to think about in the relatively near future, in the next couple of months probably, will be the fact that we know that there are some abutter issues on the parcel that will need to be resolved. So at some point in the near future, we'll need to be talking about hiring a land surveyor to go out there and mark some missing corners, and potentially mark out some lines for us and probably look forward to working with Steve Walker again over at the OEPD with the state. So it's good to hear that that's moving forward anyway. We'll have something else to focus on. So that's that. That's all I really know, actually. It's just the one email and a brief conversation with Steve Fournier. Okay, so one other thing that wasn't on there is that I was contacted by Mike Hoffman, the town code enforcement officer, and he has thoughts about replacing the sign at Heron Point at the entrance to the mobile home park. He's thinking that the sign that's there doesn't quite do justice to the park that's there, and he said that he would be willing to do all of the legwork on putting together a sign design and having it made. He's basically asking for our blessing to do it and potentially funding to pay for it. Right now, there's a small sign. I think it says Wildlife Sanctuary. I don't know exactly what it says.
I think it says Heron. I thought it said Heron Point Walking Trails or something like that. And it's like green and white, small like white letters. It is really not very.
Yeah, and apparently they're going to be redoing their entrance and making it look nicer. And Mike thought it would be a good opportunity for us to put up a better sign. And so, to that point, I also thought that Fred Pearson, who is no longer on the commission, and Pauline Bisson spent a lot of time at Heron Point and used to kind of keep track of it for us and kind of do maintenance on it as necessary. And I don't know that I personally haven't been there but one or two times ever. And I don't know if any of us have walked it or seen what it looks like out there in a long time, but we should probably think about at some point.
It looks really good.
Have you been out there
Yeah.
recently? Okay.
I've taken my dogs out there.
Okay.
That's legal, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it looks good. I mean, it used to be all kind of like yucky looking, like the deck area by the water used to be like all torn apart. It looks
I know.
really good.
It's looking good, okay.
Yeah.
All right,
It looks
excellent.
really good, and the trails are good too.
Okay, that's what I just kind of wanted to know. If someone's been out there, then great. If not, we
Yeah,
should
it
really
really
get someone
is.
out there to walk around. I would like to go. I was going to go the other day and never made it.
On
Had
that
it somewhere
point,
else.
it is, since we use that, since people would like to use that to walk around and see that part of a nature walk of Newmarket, which is nice along the river, along the bay and stuff like that, shouldn't we have signs in town pointing people along the way? Because, are there any signs? I don't think there are, to say that this way to the
Yeah.
Heron Point Nature Walk, this way.
Like at 108.
Yeah, along the way, like at the foot of the bridge, one end, then the other end going down towards.
Like leading people down Bay Road
Yeah.
and into the trailer park.
Because I've lived here all my life, and I know where it is, but I'm positive 90% of the new people in town
Yeah.
don't even know where that place is.
And yet you can see it
And you
across
can
the
see it.
river.
And we
And you're like,
talk
how do I
about
get
it,
there?
And we talk about it, but if we're gonna put money into a sign, if Hoffman wants to put money into a sign, shouldn't we also maybe put a few more dollars in and make just small informational signs along the pathway to tell people where to go to get to this
Right.
Heron Point, you know? Is that a possibility?
That's kind of what the LRAC folks are speaking to us about, making the park more accessible, because it's not easy. You can't, it's, to walk there, you walk on Bay Road, which a lot of people wouldn't mind doing. People with small children might not want to do it. And
Yeah,
so
because there's
leading
no
people-
sidewalk, right?
And there is, remember, we got confirmation from Val Shelton that when Bryant Rock was put together, or rehabilitated, that public access was secured through the Bryant Rock property to Bay Road. So you can actually walk from downtown, through the mills, across the footbridge, through Bryant Rock, to Bay Road. So it's a matter of getting from Bryant Rock to the park.
So we put a sign, we put a series of signs, or a couple, at least one or two signs, at Bryant Rock, going across the bridge maybe, this way
Put a
to,
sign there. Yeah.
they may
I'm on a
not.
condo board at Bryant Rock, they're probably not gonna want a sign there.
Well, we could put it somewhere else where they would put.
But I
wouldn't be,
agree there should be more signage to get people to that
Yeah,
park,
yeah,
that space, because there's, unless you know it's there,
yeah,
you don't know how to get there.
right.
Yeah,
And
so
it's a nice area.
one other
I
thing
walked it.
that's kind of a long shot type idea, but Mike Hoffman has also approached me, and I might have brought it up once before, about the possibility of a footbridge from downtown across the river. And at first I was like, that seems crazy. Like, that's so expensive. And then I was just down in Maryland, and these towns smaller than ours have these like great footbridges through their marshes. Great
a rope bridge?
boardwalks.
A rope-
Boardwalks with pilings and boardwalks, and they go over navigable channels. And I don't know where they got their funding from, but
Yeah, that would be the big thing, because you've
Yeah.
got all
That would be awesome.
I mean,
the boats down there, but.
I know, there's not a lot of real, it would obviously, I think it's a navigable waterway, so there are like, the harbor commission, whoever it is at the state would be like, it needs to be so high, and this, it needs to be so wide, and these things need to happen. But after seeing that down in Maryland, I was like, it doesn't seem that outlandish. It would take a lot of planning, a lot of effort, and a lot of money. But it didn't seem that.
Was that something that LRAC was interested? I know they had funding for things.
They talked about a sidewalk when they were here.
Yeah, I just don't know. I mean, because they're talking about getting people to use, do more walking, that they had the grant around that. And having people walk along the Lamprey and making that more of a trail along the entire river between like Packers Falls and here almost is what they
Right.
had talked about. And that certainly could be incorporated to that walk.
Right to Maryland and ask.
Yeah, my aunt lives in the town that I was in, and it's like, this is really nice. It's a town of 5,000 people, and who knows where they could have got funding from
Yeah.
the state
I
or
like
from
the idea
whatever,
of
so,
some
but it was.
signs, though, to try to help people find that.
And they don't have to be obtrusive signs, just small signs, so that people walk up there, they see the sign, oh, that's the way to Heron Point. Oh, I didn't know that. Let's follow this sign.
But
Do you think, go find it.
Do you think TNC would be interested in going something with
I
us?
wanna
maybe?
see around
At the
Kennedy,
corner of Bay Road,
Yeah.
108?
Because
It's
that's,
not
that's I think the other thing that people.
Like the sign at the top of the hill at Water
And it
Street?
really is.
Because it looks like you're walking into the park.
At the top,
so-
at Water Street, at the top of the hill, there's a sign that says like Shanda Park, it says
Right,
like
right,
waterfront,
something
it
like
says,
that.
and at the end of Bay Road, the Nature Conservancy has lots of walking trails and their headquarters out that road. I mean,
But if you had it at Shanda Park and had a
Yeah,
sign, and it'd be like 4 inches by 8 inches with an arrow, this way to Heron Point. Arrow points going upstream, just follow.
Or Heron
it.
Point walking trails or
or
something.
even a
so
map on the
people know.
kiosk. I haven't been to Shanda Park in a while since they put the new kiosk up.
Or some
But
form
what
of
about a sign
information.
there too? That's just a small overview of downtown.
With a map showing
with a
where it
map,
is,
yeah,
yeah.
showing a route to get
Yeah,
to it,
There you go, there you go,
and a sign that says that way.
there you go.
I like all of these ideas, but what this started with was Mike Hoffman volunteering.
No, I
Try
know.
and get
yeah,
us
yeah.
a sign at the end of the road. So let's make sure that we get that as a
Yeah.
starting point.
Voice
If we
of
can
reason.
build on that, let's do that.
So does he need approval from us, Jeff? Do we need a motion on that, or?
Yes.
He doesn't have a exact price for us, or it depends on how big of a sign that they make. But he had a square footage that he talked about, that it should be this square footage is the typical sign that's used in parks. It's like, I think it was a National Park Service square footage thing. It's not very big. I mean, it's like, instead of, the current one's like 1 by 1.5, and he's like 2 by 2. Like, just bigger and nicer and more obvious is all he was thinking. And I can't remember, but I thought he said like $350 to $600 or something like that. was the
So
cost.
I'll make a motion that the Conservation Commission supports Mike Hoffman's pursuit of an improved and appropriate sign to be located at the intersection of Bay Road, and I'm not sure what the other road name is right there, to help indicate how to get to the trails at Heron Point.
Second.
I like that idea. Is that gonna be right on Bay Road? Is that
Yes.
where it is? Could be located? Big enough
Yes.
sign so people can see.
Oh, so it's not like in the trailer park?
Right at Bay Road,
Right at
No,
Bay
the sign's
Road.
right there at Bay Road
Okay.
now.
right at the stone wall.
Oh,
Okay, so that would
and
be
I haven't
good.
seen it.
Okay, I didn't know you were gonna put it right on Bay Road.
Pretty-
That's good.
That's where the
That's-
current one is, yeah. So it's
and
basically
it
in the
sounds
same
like
I
that's
spot.
see.
like- Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just larger.
He just wants a larger, nicer looking sign there.
Still, it would be nice to have another sign at the,
Yeah.
coming
There would,
across
there would be
108.
one available that would come down from the current location. It could be moved.
That's for sure. That's
Move
true.
the arrow a little bit.
There's a stop sign already at the end of Bay Road that could be screwed to, probably.
Tell
DPW would be
Where to
so,
turn onto Bay Road to get down to the
Yeah.
place.
So is there any further discussion on Drew's motion itself, or additions, subtractions? I'm good with it. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
I would just add to the other part of our discussion that I remember when we did the visioning, the town visioning process, that the idea of wayfinding for signage, not just for specifically, what were we just talking about? The
Heron Point.
Heron Point, but also, I mean, for well, for trails more generally, and like Sliding Rock, for example, I think is harder to find than Heron Point, but is also walkable from downtown. But even people were talking about parking and all kinds of different things, but that wayfinding was something that, and signage for that, and kind of being able to navigate the town and use all the resources that are here was something that I know was stressed by a number of people. And I know that, I mean, trails was definitely part of that discussion, and hopefully, if there are next steps to that, can continue to be.
I have a question about that. No, you guys might not know the answer. We can talk about it next month too. But to that point, most people navigate. They pull out their phone or something. They're like, oh, what do you want to do today? They look at the map and Google Earth or something like that. And there's like place marks for parks all over the place. Like, how do you get your town's parks place marked in Google Earth? Like, I don't know how they do it or what becomes of it, but it seems like that might be a decent way for people to find conservation lands in town. Because we have discussed before updating and making a nicer and more available, like, PDF of a townwide map of our conservation areas and having that on the town's website, and adding trail maps for the for in the individual conservation areas. And it's something that we've been talking about exploring for a couple of years, really. I think.
Is there like an area on the
They would-
town website that has like
Not
walking
really.
Well, that's what
trails?
we talked about.
Yeah.
We don't have a good, we could-
There's a map.
Not
up
even
there.
on the web.
There was a map up there.
There's a
Some things
map, but
come
it's
in.
not really, it's not that helpful. Like, it kind of indicates where some of the spots are, but it doesn't give you good locations, streets, and things like that. It could be more detailed. Certainly, I think we talked about this before, Jeff. We got access to some of the stuff that Diane has, or somebody like that, because if you look at like Durham or Lee's map, you pull it up and it really is very detailed and gives you great direction to finding exactly where the conservation land is. And then we could put, whether a spot has parking and trails,
Right.
we could add those features on easily, and then I think it would be easier for.
Was the Parks Department the one that was here talking about the brochure they were making that was listing?
That's what Amy from the Parks Department had brought. The
Recreation
list.
Department.
Recreation Department, yes.
Oh.
Brought the list that she had put together.
Has that been finished, do we know, or?
I thought it was published in
It was
the.
published.
Yeah, it doesn't.
But it doesn't have,
Still
like,
doesn't
yeah,
have that
like,
kind of
okay.
detail in it.
And the optimum would simply be like a map that you could
Well, I
click on and it
suggested
would
we
open
do
up
it.
a
I just
description
hadn't
of the
thought up on it
parcel.
either. So that's why I was looking at
Because
Jeff.
you
I
had
was-
compiled quite a bit of material.
Well, what I did was just went to some neighboring towns and looked at what they
I see,
had
I see.
on site, and Jeff thought we could access something like that, maybe through some of the
we just need someone that can make
Yeah.
these things. So, I mean, if somebody wants to take that on as a project,
Who would be someone we could contact at the town to get at least what they have? I know you said
I
they
mean-
have is it CAD or what is it called, that program?
they would be they'd be shapefiles or an ARC, yeah, Esri, ARC, map or ARC info, depends on what software. But I think that Ellen Snyder, who prepared the management plan for Wigan Farm, who does some GIS work, there's other GIS resources, you can talk to the people over at Granite.
Yeah, she did talk about that. She does have some background in doing stuff like that, so maybe we could talk to her about it.
Right. You can also contact the people at Granite. It's a GIS warehouse at UNH. They have all sorts of data, and they might be able to put us in contact with folks to talk to. The Stratford Regional, are we still part of the Stratford Regional Planning Commission?
Yes.
And I know that they've done mapping work. I've done mapping work with them on or talked to them about they helped prepare the prime wetland maps that we, several years ago, finally got out and onto the town website.
Okay.
So Stratford, I can give you a contact at Stratford Regional Planning and see.
Yeah,
see what
I'll
they have.
follow up on it, see what I can find out.
Yeah, because I think that would be really good to add to the town
Yeah.
website.
I'd like to get it done.
And Andrea was hopefully working on some sort of trail map and kiosk type thing for Piscassic Loisel. So that would be something like, if you had it, you could click, and it's just a PDF, if you click on the
Yep.
map on the website, it'll bring up another page of a PDF, but anyhow.
All right.
That's what we need.
Anyhow. So, on to old and new business. The Wigan Farm Management Plan update, Ellen Snyder was supposed to be here this evening. She must have been delayed or upheld. I'll contact her. Or who knows, she maybe will still show up over here. But she did prepare the management plan. It has been submitted and reviewed by the folks at Fish and Game, I believe. And so basically, it's a draft that's before us to kind of review and go over with her and give any comments we have. So encourage folks to take time to review it if they get a chance. Oh yeah, I did print one paper copy, so I'd have it tonight to
You
mark
got
up
it.
as we went over it. And I only printed out one of the maps that she made because I thought it pertains to something else that we'll discuss. And I also had Bay Dame Road, or Dame and Bay Road open space, but we went over that in planning. Schottmeyer Committee, I went over, and because I figured late in the game that it was actually kind of a subcommittee. So the LRAC folks worked together with Kevin Martin. So to finish the kiosk down at Shanda Park. So just like to put out special thanks to, I know Preston Samuel and Dick Lord of LRAC volunteered multiple days to help Kevin Martin work on the kiosk. I was down there one day when it was 75% done. I was on a walk with my kids in the middle of a weekday, oddly enough, and saw Kevin down there working on it and talked to him a bit. So, and thanks especially to LRAC as well for covering the full cost of that. We had discussed that we would pay and then they would reimburse us, but going over that with Dick, we both decided that doesn't make any sense at all, and so they're going to just pay for it directly. We won't even get a bill. I know it's a little more expensive than the other, and also a lot of thanks. I guess it took quite some time to dig the holes for the post, so a lot of thanks to the folks at DPW for helping find a spot where they could actually dig down and get the posts into the ground. I guess the digging was quite difficult. But yeah, so I haven't seen it. I don't know if has anyone seen it since they got it up with the sign on it and everything.
Looks nice.
Looks nice.
Solid.
Is it?
Yeah,
They
I
were
was down
working.
there, I got there, and 10 minutes after I got there, it started, the skies opened up, so wasn't able really to do anything with Kevin while he was down there. He was just finishing it off when I got there. But it looks good, yeah, it's solid, just like the other one that Loisel.
Nice. Yeah, I know they had to turn it just a little bit
Yeah.
because of the rocks that were
But
there.
it
I
looks
guess.
good. That was a good location for it, too.
Excellent. Yeah, and excellent. So the other thing we had to talk about, the kiosk, was with Andrea. So with the Piscassic Loisel kiosk, just she was going to be working on some signage. So we'll catch up with her at a later date. And the next thing on there is the Wigan Farm boundary maintenance project that we've kind of been working on over time. So Drew contacted Scott Boudreau of Boudreau Land Surveying, and I don't know if you want to get into it or you want me to, or
Go ahead. Yeah, I wasn't there for any of the surveying.
yeah. So I wasn't there for the surveying either, but we coordinated and were able to get Rick Molaski from DPW went up there because he was going to be placing materials along the boundary for us. And Steve Walker from OEPD and Fish and Game from the state of New Hampshire was there as well. And Scott found the boundary markers that were necessary to mark the line. He marked the line, found there's no personal property being stored on the Wigan Farm lot. Some things are quite close, but nothing actually on. So that was good news. So there was nothing to be moved. Sorry, I should clarify for folks at home. That would be it's the boundary line between tax map R6 lots 21 and 22. Tax map R6 lot 22 is owned by Mr. Jeff Russell, and tax map R6 lot 21 is the town-owned Wigan Farm with the Fish and Game easement on it. So Scott Boudreau placed 3 iron rods flush with the ground out there along the line and put grade stakes next to them. And there was a subsequent meeting held that evening between Rick Molaski and Mr. Russell, and they talked about, instead of placing any large or boulders along the line, that what would be placed along the line is just several wooden posts, kind of like we discussed initially that maybe we should go with posts or a fence, and try to work out an agreement for kind of a volunteer agreement for mowing the area amongst the existing orchard that's there, and it's kind of the old farmstead area, which is shown pretty well on our updated management plan. And Mr. Russell was agreeable to that, very agreeable, no issue with it. Thought it was great, a great idea. So I honestly think it's a win-win for everyone in the long run. It's kind of, I think it's what we discussed initially. I don't know if folks object, please speak up, because I think
I was
now would be
very
the time.
impressed that you were able to do that.
But they're,
Instead of boulders. I just think it
Yes.
was really, it was great that you got together and you worked it out.
Yeah, many thanks to Steve Walker and Rick Molaski. I mean, the two of them, Scott marked the line, and the two of them were there. They spoke with Mr. Russell's significant other. She put him in touch with Mr. Russell. They spoke about it. They met about it. Rick really did us a big favor, meeting with him later that evening, and kind of hammering out the agreement. In the interim, he had stopped in, and I ended up going over to town hall and speaking with the town administrator to get his thumbs up on the revised plan, which he gave to us. So yeah, it's and Steve Walker at the state is very pleased, and he's it was basically the agreement he originally wanted as well. So
It's great.
I hope it works out in the long run. So that being said, I received conservation easement signs from Fish and Game the other day. They would like us to place these on the posts that are installed, and use the remaining ones to kind of place around the areas where we have direct abutters. There are some further down that line, and so we'll have to install these when the time comes. So there's two outstanding things regarding the situation that we need to take care of. We need to get the posts and have them installed. I actually haven't gotten to that with Rick yet, because I have not gotten together an agreement document. It's going to be in a volunteer agreement. It's not going to be some sort of license or easement or anything like that. It's just a volunteer agreement to mow. So I personally would prefer if it were reviewed by the town's legal counsel to make sure the town's properly protected. And I'm not, we're not putting together some document that will get us in trouble down the road. So I was kind of waiting to see if I could get legal counsel to just write it. But the town administrator would like us to try to prepare it first and then provide it to legal counsel for review and editing. I know that Mr. Russell would like to take care of this as soon as possible, and I would as well, to kind of move on. We've kind of been dealing with this situation for years, and it would be nice to put it to
I'll
bed,
try and draft
so.
something.
Okay. If you could send it to Steve Fournier and CC me, that would be much appreciated.
Sure.
And in the interim, we can I can look into getting some posts, or I can give Rick a call and see what he says about posts, if he wants to pick up posts and install them, or if he wants us to get something. But I think the thought was just some 4x4 cedar posts
That's,
with the easement signs on them.
Right. That's what we used at Piscassic Loisel to kind of mark the back boundary, and it has the those posts have the bird houses on it as well.
Excellent. Yeah, and I think we were thinking just like 3 of them.
Sure.
So.
Would they want lolly columns? More permanent?
No, I mean, the thought was that it would be kind of natural, kind of not so obtrusive, kind of a friendly agreement, and so to make this actually work, we needed the ability within our management plan to mow. It was never written into our, like, whatever we do to that property has to be in the management plan and kind of has to have reasoning. And actually, as in Ellen's assessment of the property, there's quite a number of invasive plants within the area of the apple trees and kind of around the old house foundation or farmstead foundation. I'm not sure if it's a barn foundation or the house foundation, but regardless, there's quite a bit going on out there. And culturally, it's a valuable area because it's an old farm that was there for many, many, many years. And so, to that end, she actually recommended that area be maintained during the growing season to control invasives and kind of to encourage use of that area. And I actually think that if we got into the management plan with her, you'd see that she actually recommended, I think, some signage in that area to kind of explain that here's where the old farm was. Because she did recommend signage updates around the park. So, I don't know if you can have that, Drew, but
Okay.
that's the area she was talking about.
Okay, cool.
And perhaps we could reference that map.
In this letter or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, it could be
sure.
super simple letter.
Good idea.
Yep,
Reference to the map. That way we
Yep.
have something spatial to go by.
sure.
It doesn't need to include the whole thing either. It's. I don't know if you want a copy of that too, but I have a copy of that.
Okay, sure.
Thank you for drafting the letter, Drew.
It's not done yet.
Thank you for volunteering.
You can
for
thank
that.
me when it's done.
Noted. I'll write that note now. So yes, thanks again to all involved. It was a good effort on everyone's part. And, the last thing I had on new and old business were the rain barrels. So the reason I had originally added that to our agenda was that, remember the Soap Gray Bay project and the rain garden that they put in at Bill Archeri's property, if I'm saying his name right, over at Brialia Circle. So they put in the rain garden. They they are having a something new in the neighborhood event Saturday, July 16th, from 10 to 11:30, to kind of say, hey, public, whoever wants to, look at what we did here. This is a good idea. And as part of that, they were looking to raffle off a rain barrel, perhaps. So I was thinking, if we have a rain barrel, perhaps we'd be willing to donate it. I know, we went around, spent a lot of time with Laura one day. Fred Pearson and Pauline and myself spent about 4 or 5 hours going around town looking for places. We ended up at Brialia Circle, and she came up with the project there, and that kind of was where our involvement ended, I believe. Unless folks went over and helped build it, I don't know, actually. I didn't. But, so I thought that perhaps we'd be interested in donating it. And I thought people would be agreeable, so I was like, well, I'll see, but I'm pretty sure it'll be able to happen. And lo and behold, when we finally got a hold of Fred and Pauline, the previous 2 barrels that they had sold, one had a big crack in it. So they took the cracked one back and gave the person the good one. So we have no rain barrel. So I know, and yeah, I don't know when they did this, because I haven't been able to actually call and talk to them on the phone. I emailed Fred a couple times, and I emailed Pauline and Fred, and Pauline got back to me. So so we don't have any rain barrels to donate. Laura did ask if we would be willing to fund the cost of a rain barrel to donate, basically. And I asked her if there was a dollar amount she'd be looking for, and I have not heard back on a dollar amount, but
Lowe's.
I don't know.
Lowe's had quite a few of them. Home Depot does as well, and they're about right around $100,
Heard
$125.
back. I don't know, we usually pay like $60, I think, each. Something
Yeah,
like that.
I think
it's
that's right.
60 or 64 or something a piece. We buy them in quite large bulk.
Yeah. So are you looking for a motion?
No, I'm just looking for a discussion. I don't know what people think. I'm not saying I necessarily am like promoting it. I don't know what other folks think about it. If anyone has any thoughts, if they want to, someone's like, yes, we should do it, or someone's like, no, we shouldn't. I don't know.
I think we should do
I
it,
think
because
we
it
should too.
promotes what we like.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I certainly would have been happy to donate one if
Me
we had
too.
one. And is that any different than donating funding to purchase one? I would say no, it is not.
Where is this circle?
It's just beyond the Pines retirement home.
Yep.
Just past it on the right on Grant Road there.
About a quarter mile out Grant Road on the right-hand side.
It kind of goes up to a little rise and starts to drop a little bit to right at the
There's a
rise.
stone wall
Oh, just-
along the side there.
Oh, on the right-hand side,
Yeah.
as you're going out of town?
They cut a bunch of trees down in front of the White House.
Okay, so it's just beyond the pines,
Just beyond the Pines on the
on
right.
the right-hand side, going
Yeah.
out of town?
Yeah, it's a big entrance. It's a full-on road.
Oh, and that's the name of the road?
Yeah,
Yep.
Brialia Circle. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
it's in there,
It's
okay.
a small development.
Yeah, it's new, okay.
Relatively.
Not that
20 years old, maybe.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it
it's
20
been
years
there a
old, I
while.
think? Maybe,
Really,
That's
okay,
about enough.
okay.
maybe
It's
it's
been there a
not.
while.
Maybe,
Yep.
it's been there quite some
Just
time. yeah.
wasn't sure. Good.
So would we give them like a gift certificate or something, or how would
I
that
think-
work?
Laura, I think, I mean, we didn't really get into the specifics of it because I was hoping we would have this rain barrel, and kind of, I just heard back from Pauline this morning. I think we would maybe reimburse her, would be my guess.
Yeah.
So my thought, I think that generally it's a good idea. My one concern would just be the pragmatics of its utility, and that if it's an event happening this Saturday, to what extent are they able to like advertise, like we're going to be raffling off a rain
Oh,
barrel?
no, they already are.
Oh, they are, okay. So they're-
Rain barrel raffle at 10:30.
Okay.
Problem solved.
Yeah.
That was her plan from the beginning, but she was hoping we could donate one, because she knew, because like, she came to our meetings, and I went
Sure.
on that walk with her, she knew we had rain
So it's a
barrels.
contribution towards.
Yeah,
Okay.
and Diane Hardy also had made the same request of us.
Okay.
Actually, which I didn't mention, but yeah, she had made that same request. So yeah, they are definitely planning. They're gonna raffle one off one way or another. My understanding.
Do people know about this event other than kind of it being nuts? I didn't, because I just looked at the Newmarket Weekly News. I didn't see it in there. But
No, and I asked her if I was allowed to invite people,
Uh-huh.
and I know a lot of people don't watch our meetings, and probably very few will watch it by Saturday, and
Uh-huh.
even less will probably go this Saturday, July 16th. At 10.
But for anyone who is watching.
I know, I know.
There will
See-
be
and
a
seeing
rainbow
how
raffle.
Buy a raffle
seeing how the
ticket.
town is donating a object, I don't know that it would be. She said that I could feel free to invite. I asked her if I could ask the commission at the meeting tonight if they wanted to go, which she knows is public, a public meeting. So I have announced it at a public meeting, and I think the more people that see it, the better, actually. So.
So I move that we donate a rain barrel or the equivalent.
Thank you.
Or funding for the
Right, or-
equivalent.
yeah, right.
I second that.
I'll support that motion.
Can I make one amendment?
Yeah.
Not to exceed $200? Is
Sure.
that fair?
Sure.
Because it would be.
Very fair.
I don't know if there's like some Cadillac of rain barrel. that you could spend $1,000
There is
on.
Cadillac with rainbows, so that goes in.
That's a good thought, good thinking.
Purifies the water for drinking.
I think you're
And this
right.
event is open to the public, and everybody's encouraged to attend, that wants to go down and
Yeah.
Yes.
And enter the raffle and
That's my
whatever.
understanding at
Yes.
36 Brialia Circle.
The event's from 10 to
Saturday-
11:30.
Saturday, July 16th, from 10 to 11:30. The rain barrel raffle will be held at 10:30.
So if you've never been to Brialia Circle
Here's
and
your
you want to
opportunity.
Yeah,
check it out.
There you go, 10:30.
It'll show up on
I
Google
got Saturday
Maps.
off, yeah, I'm gonna do that. I got a weird rain barrel though, I already got one, but I could use the second one.
So personally not having amended a motion before, do we need to?
I accept it as friendly and amend my motion. And I don't know if there's a re-second,
I resecond
then we
that.
don't, then it's, the motion's just changed. Okay.
Excellent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Excellent. I will let Laura know directly after I leave the meeting. And that's all I have under new and old business. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to bring up?
No, sir. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None?
Guys have it.
Ayes have it. Thank you very much.